I was in the checkout aisle of the dollar store yesterday, and guess what I found? Mike and Ike's, which is pretty surprising because I always thought of Mike and Ike's as something that you would have in a vending machine where you put in a quarter and you turn the knob and a few of them would get dispensed into your hand. Maybe you'd have 5 to eat or something like that. I didn't know that you could get a whole box of them. Wow. I have so many of them now. I don't think I should eat all of them. I'm going to have to eat a fraction of them. So I'm not going to eat all of them. I need to dump them out on the table and figure out how I can eat a fraction of them. Before I do, I should note that it would be really useful for you to have some sort of box of candies to do this math with as well, whether it's M&Ms or Skittles or Mike and Ike's. But if you don't have that, you can use any small objects in your house. It could be pom-poms or paper clips or, your parents' collection of pennies that's been sitting under the bed for 10 years and now they don't know what to do with it. Any small object that you have a lot of would be useful for this lesson, so you can follow along doing the same thing that I'm doing. With that said, I'm going to dump out the box onto the table and we'll see how many Mike and Ike's we have. I've dumped the candies on the table here, and as you can see, I've got 75 of them, which is much more than you would get if you got them from a vending machine where you just put in a quarter and maybe they put a few of them in your hand. In fact, I have so many, I don't think I should eat them all at once. I'm thinking I should eat 2/5 of the candies. 2/5. But how do I figure out what 2/5 is in this case? I don't know how to find a fraction of something yet. I better figure that out before I eat my candies. Before we solve my Mike and Ike problem on the table, I'm going to try solving a simpler problem. In this case, the question is, what is 1/2 of 6? So I have 6 Mike and Ikes on the screen over here, and I want to find out what 1/2 of them is. Now remember when we were looking at equivalent fractions, and we talked about the fact that instead of looking at 1/2 or 1/4 or 1/3 of an individual object, we could think of it as 1/2 of the groups. So what we're going to do is make groups representing 1/2. What would that look like? The numerator is 1, which means we're selecting one group, and the denominator is 2, which means there are going to be 2 equal groups to select from. So how are we going to do that? Well, let's make 2 columns, and then once we make 2 columns, we can sort the Mike and Ikes into those 2 columns and then select one of them. 2 columns, select 1. 2 columns for the denominator, select 1 for the numerator. Let's give it a try. So I'm going to move one over here, and then the other over there, and then all the other Mike and Ikes are going to go underneath in one of those 2 columns. Let's keep sorting. Need to make sure they are equal amounts in each column. There we go. Now I have 2 equal columns, just like the denominator wants. Now the numerator says select 1. So I'm going to select 1 column. And how many are in that column? Well, there are 3 Mike and Ikes, so I know that 1/2 of 6 is 3. Let's try another one. I have a few more Mike and Ikes on the table now, and the question is, what is 1/3 of 12? The denominator is going to tell us how many groups or how many columns we need to make. And the denominator is 3, so I need to have 3 equal columns. So let's make our 3 columns. 1, 2, 3. And then everything else needs to go under those columns so that there are equal amounts, because with fractions you always have to have equal amounts, equal groups. Let's do it. Moving them under each column, making sure there are equal amounts in each column. And then after I'm done sorting, I'm going to look at the numerator. Okay, I'm finished sorting. Let's look at the numerator. The numerator says 1 out of the 3 columns. Select 1. So I'm going to select 1. There we go. I've selected 1 of the 3 groups. And how many are there in that column? Well, there are 4. So 3. So 1/3 of 12 is 4. Fantastic. Let's try doing it a slightly different way with this question. Instead of sorting the Mike and Ikes into columns, let's sort them into predefined circle groups. You might have done this when you were doing division last year. And as we know, fractions and division are basically the same thing, so it shouldn't be surprising that we're doing this. The question says, what is 1/4 of 12? So, if we look at the denominator, it tells us how many groups we need to have. It says 4. So let's make those 4 groups now. And now we just need to sort the Mike and Ikes equally into those groups. Let's do it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Awesome. So the question is, what is 1/4 of 12? So how many groups do I need to select? The numerator says 1 group. So I'm going to select that group. And then how many are there in that group? 1, 2, 3. So 1/4 of 12 is 3. Beautiful. What if I were to ask a slightly different question? Instead of asking what is 1/4, what if I ask for 3/4 of 12? How would I answer that? Well, the denominator is the same, so I don't need to resort them. But the numerator is different. It says 3. So instead of selecting 1 group, I need to select 3 groups. How many groups? 3. So I'm going to count all of the Mike and Ikes in each of those 3 groups. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 3/4 of 12 is 9. Are you ready to try question with even more Mike and Ikes? Of course you are, because everyone loves more candy. Let's do it. Oh, 15 Mike and Ikes now. And the question is, what is 2/5 of 15? The denominator tells me I need to have 5 equal groups. So let's do it. There they are. And let's start sorting. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and... Maybe this is the wrong song for this sorting. Anyways, let's just keep sorting, making sure we put equal amounts in the groups. Okay, there we go. I've sorted them equally. And it's asking what is 2/5 of 15. Numerator says I need to select how many groups? 2. So let's select 2 groups to count from. 2. And let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 2/5 of 15 is 6. That's pretty easy, isn't it? You just need to use the division skills that you already learned last year. Now it's time to try it yourself. I have given you 4 problems to solve with some fill in the blanks. And I want you to look at the problems and then write down the answers on a random piece of paper that you happen to have lying around with you. What do you need to write? Well, you don't need to draw the picture again. I just want you to write this part over here. And what is it asking you? First, it's asking you what fraction is selected by the curly brackets over here. What fraction of all of the dots? And then over here, it's asking you what the total number of dots is. And then over here, it's asking you what's that amount that's the fraction. So press pause to try it out, and then press play to check your answers. Welcome back. Let's check your answers. So let's work on the top left first, and let's deal with our fraction amount. So the denominator tells us how many groups there are in total, and the numerator tells us how many are selected. There are 1, 2, 3 groups, so 3 for denominator, and then 2 groups are selected, so 2 for the numerator. What goes here in the blank spot? This is the total amount. So 3, 6, 9. We have 9 green dots altogether. And then 2/3 of 9 is what? Well, we can count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2/3 of 9 is 6. So if you were a little bit confused about how to solve this, maybe you want to press pause now, recheck your answers, make any changes you need to do for the other 3, and then come back and check your answers again. Okay, let's try with the orangey yellow dots over here. First, let's make the fraction. Denominator tells us how many groups there are. 1 group, 2 groups. 2 groups. Numerator tells us how many groups are selected. Just 1 group is selected. So we have 1/2.
And 1/2 of what? Well, 1/2 of the total amount. And the total amount is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1/2 of 8. And 1/2 of 8 is how much? 1/2 of 8 is 1, 2, 3, 4. 1/2 of 8 is 4. Okay, we're halfway there. Let's look at the dots on the bottom left. Well, let's start with the fraction. The fraction is asking us, for the denominator, how many total groups, and for the numerator, how many groups we selected. So there are 2 total groups, and we've selected 1, so it's 1/2 again. And then what's the total amount? Because the next part is asking us the total amount. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 dots altogether. And then 1/2 of 6 is what? 3. One more to go. In the bottom right, we have some red dots. So let's make our fraction first. How many total groups are there? There are 4 total groups, so the denominator is 4. And then how many have we selected with our curly brackets? We've selected 3 groups, so 3 3/4. And then we're trying to find 3/4 of what? We're trying to find for 3/4 of the entire amount, which is 8. 3/4 of 8 is, and now we only select the ones that are part of the fraction amount, the amount that we've selected, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 3/4 of 8 is 6. Well done, everybody. Thanks for trying that out. Before I turn you loose on your math assignment for today, I want you to try another way of answering these kind of questions. I've given you all of the dots, and I just want you to circle the fraction amount. You can do this in your mind, because I don't want you to take a pen or a pencil and literally draw on the screen of the computer, laptop, or tablet that you're using right now. Just circle it in your mind and then check if you got the answers right. Okay, the first question asks us to circle 1/3 of 9. We know there are 9 dots here, and there are 3 groups, 1, 2, 3. We just need to circle one of them. So 1/3 of 9 is 3. In the bottom corner here, it asks us to circle 2/4 of 8. We know there are 8 dots. We know they're separated into 4 groups. We just need to circle 2 of the fourths. So it would look something like that. Congratulations, everybody, for learning how to find fractions of whole numbers. Let's see if I can apply that knowledge to my Mike and Ike situation on my kitchen table.
Now I know that in order to find the fraction of an amount, I have to sort the amount into groups shown by the denominator, and then select the number of groups shown by the numerator. In this case, my fraction is 2/5. I want to find 2/5 of the candies. So the denominator is 5. So I need to sort it into 5 groups. So let's do that. I'll put one group over here, one group over here, one group over here, one here, and one here. That's 5 groups. Okay, now I'm going to do a speed sort. Ready, set, go. There we go. I have sorted my Myconites into 5 equal groups. Now I need to select 2 of them. Why? Because the numerator for 2/5 is 2. So the denominator showed me how many groups to sort them in, and the numerator told me how many groups to select. So that's 2. One group, 2 groups. Now, how many do I have? $30. I have 30 Myconics. So, which means that 30 Myconics is 2/5 of 75 Myconics. And I think 30 is enough to eat, so I'm going to start eating those. I think I like the yellow ones the best. It's a good thing I figured out what fraction of them I can eat, because I didn't want to eat all of them. Now, while I eat my fraction of Myconics, I want you to complete page 214 in your Jump Math book, and then complete the quiz that comes afterwards. Enjoy your fractions. Hopefully you've got some candy to do some fractioning with as well.